Hello everyone. Episode 9 of the Frasier reboot revealed Niles and Daphne's worst failure, making their absence worse. Away from his family in Seattle, Frasier Crane makes his way through his new life in Boston. Martin is no longer in the Emerald City, but his brother and sister-in-law are still there. Considering that Frasier moved to Chicago and has long since lived apart from them, it's nevertheless startling to see him navigate life without his daily coffee meetings with Niles or Daphne's sporadic reality checks. Kelsey Grammer had extended an invitation to David Hyde Pierce and Jane Leeves to participate in the revival behind the scenes, but they declined. Both Niles and Daphne were fantastic additions to the original Frasier program, and if the original plans for the Cheers spin-off had been followed, they both would have never happened. Each of them contributed something novel on their own, both in terms of their interaction with Frasier and how it affected his relationship with Martin. But when combined, they could be among the greatest comedy love tales. Taking everything into account, it is a huge letdown that none of them would be included in the Paramount Plus reboot. However, the fix is in. The 9th episode of the Frasier reboot manages to make things worse in some way. The Frasier remake is trying to start its own Daphne and Niles relationship, which is evidence of how amazing they were, though it's unclear whether it will amount to anything at this point. Their son David is a more direct means of maintaining their relevance, as he attends Harvard and is headquartered in Boston. He plays the Crane Moon lineage in the new series. It goes without saying that he spends a lot of time with Freddie, his uncle and cousin. David shares traits with his parents, such as Niles' intelligence and social awkwardness and Daphne's enthusiasm. Because of his participation, the series is also able to disclose information about the pair after Frasier moved to Seattle. Although David had previously discussed his parents in the revival, his disclosure in the penultimate episode of the first season of the Frasier reboot is maybe the most damaging to them. The son of Niles and Daphne, who works as Alan's assistant, is intimidated into following Frasier's friends' orders. David is a rule follower, much like his father, yet Alan manages to con him into doing the most routine chores. David, rather from being angry, finds the experience enjoyable, stating that he prefers to be treated like an adult rather than a child since his parents were too indulgent with him. Just like his father, uncle, and cousin, David has obvious intelligence. He disclosed that, up until Frasier handed him a B, he was a straight-A student in the Frasier reboot episode 8, The B Story. Even yet, David behaves more like a kid in college than a responsible adult, despite his intelligence. In particular, he finds most social situations difficult, which has a detrimental effect on his dating life. It's hard to pinpoint precisely how David's parents coddled him, but given the typical outcomes of being spoiled, it's probable that his upbringing had a major role in his social struggles. The wonderful thing about David's admission in the fix is that he is actively looking for solutions to cope with the effect of being coddled on his present state of being. It is commendable and demonstrates his commitment to improving himself that he maintains a positive attitude even when Alan is clearly influencing him. The only negative aspect is that he is easily exploited. If he doesn't learn to be discriminating in the circumstances he puts himself in, he may unintentionally be mistreated. It's still critical that he develops some sense of self-control. In the last episode of the original Frasier, David was born, since he was only a baby when Frasier departed Seattle. Even though he had an official appearance in the first series, he had no bearing on the plot. As such, the Paramount Plus reboot approaches character development with almost a blank slate. It's strongly implied in the new program that David is an only child, which may help to explain why Niles and Daphne indulged him, even if the show doesn't focus too much on the past. Though it's hard to envision Daphne indulging her kid given how severe she was throughout Martin's hip rehabilitation, maybe Niles was calling the shots. Hester and Martin didn't seem to spoil their children, and Lilith and Frasier worked together to discipline Freddie. Their circumstances, however, set Niles and Daphne apart from them in terms of parenting. Niles and Daphne are able to provide for David, unlike the older Cranes. Even though Frasier and his ex-wife also have a single child, the Crane Moons are content with their union. It's quite easy to overdo anything with those variables together, including spoiling their youngster. Although that doesn't make Niles and Daphne poor parents. In light of David's admission in the 9th episode of the Frasier reboot, it is undoubtedly a huge error on their part. The Frasier remake has done an excellent job of steadily gaining ground after a rough beginning. Its last stretch is intriguing since it has become better over time. Nevertheless, it would be difficult to locate someone who wouldn't want to see Niles and Daphne return in the next series. The Frasier reboot conclusion from the Seattle series only features Peri Gilpin's Roz. Thus, the only opportunity to see the pair again will likely come in maybe future episodes. I'm not sure whether Grammer will try to recruit them again at this point. In addition to preventing Niles and Daphne from getting back together with Frasier, their absence denies them the opportunity to confront their error in parenting David. Frasier and Freddie are there, but they are too preoccupied to help David in his quest to improve himself since they are focused on mending their own relationship. If the couple has a different interpretation of his experience, they will not be able to counter allegations that he was spoiled. They should at the very least pay him a visit sometimes while he's in Boston. If not, Daphne and Niall's parenting image might be severely damaged by this Frasier reboot discovery, which is something that nobody wants.